So how do you talk to your children about what makes them different from others?
So the first step really is to make them feel comfortable enough to come to you and say, I feel different or I feel insecure about this thing. And that's really where this started with Abigail, my fourth child. Again, I had a lot of practice before her, especially with Josh. But I remember thinking, like, when I was little, I would never admit to my parents when I felt insecure about something. I never wanted anybody to see me in where I felt weak or that I was feeling like I lacked, right? So the fact that Abigail had come to me and I had found out, look, we knew she was struggling in school in the first and second grade with reading specifically and writing, a little bit of math, but she was also very intelligent and she was able to answer questions or have really in-depth thought about certain topics far beyond the other children in her grade. So we didn't understand really what was going on. Like, why was she struggling with reading? None of my other kids were dyslexic, so I didn't look for that. But now I realize that my mother-in-law was, but she never had gotten diagnosed, and she kind of masked it really well. And by the time we diagnosed Abigail, my mother-in-law wasn't here anymore. So again, we didn't know to look for it, but we had her tested and then we got the diagnosis. And before I could tell her, and I really wanted to consider, like, what is this? How do I want to share it with her? So I started to do research. So my first advice to any listener is don't be afraid, right? Here's fear again. You can't be afraid, especially when it comes to your children. And I think very often parents are for many reasons, right? If we went through certain and very specific difficulties, maybe we were bullied or we grew up without money or whatever it was, we want to save our children from any pain we experienced. And chances are we didn't overcome that pain, right? We still feel badly about it, or we still wish it could be different, or we carry that along. So with Abigail, I wanted to make sure that my understanding of what she was going through, I wanted to have a clear understanding of what that was. I wanted to also learn more about how her brain worked and how she processed things. I really wanted to get informed. So while I was doing this, it was about a week and a half. And then she came to me, not knowing I was working on any of this, not knowing that we had had the diagnosis. And I remember I was I was late for a dinner, and she was brushing her teeth and I was kind of like just out of the shower, and I'm when you're rushing and your kids are
Yeah.
talking to you. So she's looking in the mirror and I'm looking in the mirror, so we're talking through the mirror, and she said, Mom, do I need so much extra help because I'm stupid? And I remember, like, okay, nothing else matters. I don't care if I ever show up to this dinner. I don't care about anything else. And I said, of course not. You're so smart. Why are you saying that? She said. And so we sat down on my bed and we had this talk, and it's in the book. So that the book really, I remember walking away from that conversation thinking, I need to share this with other children and parents all over the world. I have to get this message out, because what really struck me is that I was able to help her change her view of herself through a
Mm.
conversation. So again,
Mm.
she trusts me. She felt safe to come to me with her insecurity, and I held space for her. I didn't react with fear. I did not try to fix it. I spoke to her back, right? And we went back and forth with this conversation. So I told her what it was called, and I said, you have something called dyslexia. And I said, in fact, I have this great book that I'm reading, and I had it with me, and it's called The Gift of Dyslexia. And I said, look, Abby, I want to show you this page. And it had all of these different characteristics of what somebody with dyslexia has, how they kind of learn, how they see the world. And in the book, I had written in a red Sharpie, Abigail to a T. And she said, Mommy, what does Abigail to a T mean? I said, well, this really describes you. This is how you learn. This is how you see things. And I read the list to her, and she's like, yeah, started getting excited that now she felt like this thing that made her feel really lonely and isolated. Wow, there's a book that's explaining her, right? So she kind of felt in that moment validated, but also like, this isn't such a bad thing. And then I started to tell her about really impressive, notable people who have had dyslexia, like Albert Einstein, like Steven Spielberg. Um, and we started going through a list of people and what they did. And she's like, really? They had dyslexia and they still did amazing things. So I said, Abigail, this is going to be your superpower. You just have to grow into this. And I said, do you believe me? And at the end, it went from, well, you kind of have to say it, you're my mom, to, yes, it's my superpower. Honestly, I still get emotional. 2 days later, she's going around to everybody in our family, even extended family, saying, I have a superpower. It's dyslexia. What's yours? And it just changed the
Oh,
way she saw the whole world, not just herself, but also anybody who has any kind of limitation, which by the way, we all do. And that was my other message to her. Like every single person is different in some way that might make them feel insecure or they might not understand fully. Everybody does. And I think that's the power of this